Hello, dear friends and warriors. My name is Simona, aka Blue, as you may already know, or not. And in the next videos, because there will be more parts, not only one, I will tell you about my benzo journey as I promised. I know you wanted to see me reading scripts with my Romanian Russian accent, but I guess this time we'll do something different. The point is, I might get triggered emotionally while recording and remembering all this experience, so probably I will put some relaxing background while you can hear me telling about my horror benzo story, ASMR style. And if I choose to do so, probably will sound something like, in 2022, I was rocking back and forth in my small room in a mental health hospital. But let's start with the beginning.
You don't have to hurt alone. I can't fix it, but you won't be by yourself.
First time I heard about Xanax or Alprazolam was in 2007 or 2008. I was in my 20s and just going through a breakup. If I remember correctly, a doctor, who was not even a psychiatrist, recommended me half a pill a day to calm me down. I can't say exactly that it helped me or if I had withdrawal symptoms back then, but I didn't take more than 0.25 for a week and not every day. Fast forward to March 2022, at the end of the big scary pandemic and during the war with Ukraine at our borders. One of my family members had a prescription for Xanax just in case. Obviously, I had no idea about side effects, administration and so on. The doctor's recommendation was to take up to 3 pills of 0.25 per day, which now I know it's quite a large amount. Under the pressure of uncertainty and breaking news, I took 0.25 milligrams per day on and off for less than 2 weeks. I noticed the first subtle symptoms of withdrawal, which I attributed to stress and general hysteria. Xanax calmed me down for a few hours, after which I felt even more anxious. I started having problems sleeping, having mood swings and episodes of paranoia. I remember that one of my cats disappeared one night and I was firmly convinced that someone had butchered her. Without knowing about side effects, I stopped the treatment after less than 2 weeks and then I noticed the first physical symptoms. Muscle and joint pain, especially in my left hand, which sometimes was almost numb, headache and muscle pain in the neck area, feeling like fainting and a general sensation that something was not right. I started having vivid dreams and repetitive dreams. I would wake up during the night with the feeling that I've been through this before, I've dreamt about this before, this has happened to me before, but at the same time I felt like I was floating in a dream. Everything around me seemed strange, surreal, and wrapped in cotton wool. Later, I found out that it's called derealization and depersonalization, and it was one of the classic withdrawal symptoms. Another extremely unpleasant symptom was the tinnitus. It started as a strong and constant ringing in both ears, doubled by a pulsating noise which echoed the heartbeat, this time in the left ear. Scared that I might have an aneurysm or a blood clot in my brain, I visited 2 ENT doctors who did several tests and told me that there was nothing wrong with me, and that I would probably die of old age. Indeed, I was one step away from dying, even in the same year, but not of old age. This happened, as I said, at the end of March 2022. The symptoms described above subsided in the following months, but not the tinnitus. So I decided to have an MRI. I must say that, at that time, I was in a long-term relationship with my ex-boyfriend from Italy, so most of the time I was there, abroad, not in Romania. It was the summer of 2022 and I decided to do more neurological investigation in the fall upon returning to my country. I don't remember that period very well. I only know that I was surrounded by a constant feeling of restlessness and anxiety, plus the stress caused by the job and many arguments between me and my ex-boyfriend on different topics. In September 2022, we were going to go together on a dream trip to France and Netherlands, which we had been planning for several months. But instead of being happy, I was stressed with work, planning, and more arguments. So I turned to the medicine kit in which I still had the blister with 10 pills of Xanax, 0.5 milligrams each. Almost the entire month of August 2022, I took 0.25 milligrams of Xanax every 2 or 3 days. The self-medication episode lasted less than 3 weeks, but it had serious consequences. I became drowsy during the day but hypervigilant at night. I developed a phobia of diseases. I started to fear that doctors were wrong, and that I really had a brain tumor. My left hand was hurting and was constantly numb. I started to have some strange sensation that I would describe as vibration or whooshing in my spine, neck and skull. My mood was changing really fast during the day. I became stressed, nervous and depressed, and for that I'm really sorry for my ex, even though he left me a few months later, so I can say that we are somehow even. I stopped the treatment about 7 days before the trip for the simple reason that I had run out of pills. The day before departure, I had a urinary infection that kept me in bed until the afternoon. Everything was dark, blurry, sad. Instead of packing my bags, I was laying on the sofa, crying, trying to understand what was going on and repeating to my ex, "This is not right. This is not me. I have no clue what's going on." Until the next day, I was not even sure that I could take the plane, but I hoped until the last moment that I would get my shit together, which I did. The journey took a good few hours with a short layover. Amazingly, I felt less anxious around people. Maybe because my mind was occupied with something else than illness, symptoms and paranoia. Over the course of the day, I had episodes of clarity in which I knew who I was, where I was and what I was doing, alternating with moments when I felt like I was suffocating, that I had no peace and that something very bad was going to happen. I think it's important to mention at this point that I've never had generalized anxiety prior to that episode, or depression that lasted more than a few days and that was cured without any pill. In addition, I'm an extremely sociable person and a big lover of flights and travel, so nothing was making any sense to me. Long story short, that 1-week trip turned into a fiasco. In addition to the mental symptoms, I started to have more physical symptoms like palpitations, joint pain, headaches, a slight tremor in my whole body and especially in my legs, tinnitus and sometimes shortness of breath. Then I noticed that I started to see blurry, first with my left eye and then with both eyes. One night, instead of being happy that the next day I was going to visit the Louvre for the first time, I searched the internet until dawn for possible explanation of my symptoms, and I came to what seemed the most possible scenario: multiple sclerosis. From that moment, my life became a nightmare and all I wanted was to return to Romania as soon as possible, to do more tests to confirm or deny my own diagnosis. A few days after we returned to Italy, both me and my partner, we got COVID. It was not a big trouble, it lasted a few days and was like a normal flu. At this point of the story, I must mention that I hadn't taken Xanax for almost 3 weeks, so without knowing it, I was in the withdrawal or post-withdrawal phase. As I said, COVID didn't cause me big problems. But about 1 week after, I woke up one night really dizzy, confused and panicking. I asked my ex to measure my blood pressure, which was fluctuating. Sometimes very low, like 90, and sometimes very high, 140, 150. My head was pounding, my hands were shaking, I felt like I was suffocating. I struggled like this for a few hours trying to fall asleep, but every time I fell asleep, I immediately woke up choking and gasping for air. I thought I had a severe form of COVID, so I asked my partner to take me to the emergency room. It was 2 or 3 in the morning, my whole body was shaking, my vision was blurry, and the diaphragm and intercostal muscles were so tense that I was struggling to breathe. The trip to the emergency room didn't last more than 50 minutes, but it seemed like an eternity. I know that I was looking at the moon through the window and thinking, you know, this is the last time I'm seeing it. This is the day I would probably die. And I was trying so hard to remember what day it was, so that I would know what day they would carve on my tombstone. I stumbled into the emergency room and almost fell. My legs couldn't hold me anymore and my whole body was shaking as if I was freezing. My partner explained to the Italian doctors what had happened, and they, after several tests, came to the conclusion that it was not the result of COVID but a panic attack. I remember they gave me 10 milligrams of intravenous Valium, which made me feel spaced out and groggy. But at least I no longer felt like I was dying. The doctor at the emergency room gave me a prescription for 1 milligram of Ativan. I had no idea what it was or that it belonged to the same family as Xanax. He then asked me when I was going to come back to Romania. In less than 1 month, I answered, and he added, then make an appointment with a neurologist or a psychiatrist to establish a tapering scheme for this pill. The next day I was a zombie. However, at 11 p.m., I took the first dose of Ativan and felt a blissful peace surrounding me. I fell asleep on the sofa next to my partner, and for the first time in a long time I was calm. But the next morning, around 5 o'clock, I woke up sweaty, dizzy, and really scared. The feeling of doom had returned. I was convinced that I was suffering from an unknown disease and I was going to die soon. I ended up having insomnia again. I lost completely my appetite. My body was shaking non-stop, but I blame it on the lack of food. I didn't feel like socializing, working, going out. I was just sitting on the sofa, most of the time in a semi-lethargic state, and the only hours when I was feeling a bit better were after the Ativan pill, which threw me into a deep sleep, until the next morning at 5 or 6 when everything was starting again. I barely managed to get tickets for Romania and make several appointments at one of the largest private clinics in Bucharest. One for a neurological exam, an MRI, and a psychiatric exam. My partner was worried. I could see him struggling, but he supported me all this time and helped me get back to my country at my parents' place. The day I took him to the airport, I was feeling somehow better. I had no idea that it was the last time I would see him. In 3-4 days, I was going to have a neuro exam, a full MRI of the head and spine, and a visit to a psychiatrist in order to stop Ativan. But about my cold turkey and how I was about to die because of doctor's ignorance, I guess I will tell you in my next video. Until then, stay strong and don't forget, this too shall pass.